What's going on, fellow apes? I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. I make art. I put that art on clothing. You can trade me green little pieces of paper for that clothing. The link is in the description. You can also use the promo code THISWORLD with no spaces or anything for 10% off anything. Yeah, check it out. It's a good way to support, and check the links in the description. And I love you guys, and enjoy the video. But in this video, I just want to talk about something that I've kind of neglected on my channel, and after a lot of reflection, I think I should make a video on it because it was probably one of the most pivotal moments of my life, and obviously from the title you can tell that that is my first ever psychedelic experience, my first ever trip. It was with acid. And ultimately, it was more than just a first trip. It was a reawakening to the true nature of myself and to the true nature of this universe, which I am a part of and am. I'm just gonna ramble on as I do. I don't remember when exactly this was, and it was a few years ago, so some of the details are probably going to be all over the place, but I think I was either 14 or 15, either my freshman or sophomore year of high school. I'm 18 now. And I had been reading about psychedelics and about trip reports and channels like my own. I would watch just religiously, so viciously curious about what the fuck is everyone talking about. People would talk about experiences of coming into contact of different parts of themselves, and even what seems like external entities, and going to different lands and seeing life clearly, and all these things interested me a lot because, just to get a little bit personal, I was a pretty depressed kid for most of what I can remember. I think with a lot of things though, or with all things, there is a duality to it. So as much as I was depressed, I had a capacity to see the world and see the beauty within the world and ponder the better things in life. But there was this nagging depression that kind of just clung to me for all of my childhood. I would look in the mirror and just hate the reflection looking back at me, and it was true, genuine hate and disapproval and disappointment. And the world was gray to me. I had thoughts of suicide. I mean, the whole 9 yards, you know the drill. I was depressed. I hated stuff. I hated everything. Yeah, I mean, I thought I did. I think I thought I hated everything because what I viewed the world as, and my experience of the world and my experience of myself, didn't align with what other people around me were talking about or how they acted or interacted with the world. I wanted to just look at stuff all the time and show people stuff. Like when I was a kid, I would catch bugs and put them in little jars and just, look mom, look at that, look. And after a while, I'm sure, I don't know, it seemed that I wasn't being received in a way that I wanted to be received. This isn't a therapy session, but I think all of this is very important and pertinent to the story, because I mean, this is the context, right? This is how I went into it. And I know that the advice I've even given is to not trip if you're not in a good headspace, but I think for some people, the best headspace they've been in for years is not a great one. And I think sometimes it's necessary to corrode away that rust that we have on our mind and our brain, in a sometimes violent way, be it vigorous exercise or a tab of acid. So I'll just get on with the story. It was either my freshman or sophomore year in high school. For literally probably a year leading up to this, I had been asking everybody who might have acid or any type of psychedelic if they had or knew anyone who had acid or any type of psychedelic. And I had such a burning curiosity within myself, and this goes for all things, that most things that I encounter where everyone's talking about them and I don't have the experience or can't understand what it is they're talking about or why they're so passionate about it, I get extremely curious and I want to know what they're talking about for whatever reason, be it human nature or just my own my own isms. But it got to a point where, after asking all the usual suspects, the weed plugs and the people who I knew did psychedelics, and I would ask every 2 weeks the same guy, hey, you know anyone? You have any? You heard of any in town? And literally for a year that went on, and I started asking like random people in the locker room, like just going from person to person. This sounds insane, and it probably is, but I needed to know what everyone was talking about. I would literally just go from person to person, upperclassmen. I was like a sophomore or freshman, and just be like, hey man, you know anyone who sells acid, or do you sell acid? I'm trying to get some. Make a long story short, eventually I found a guy. I won't disclose his name. We'll call him E. And he said, yeah, or eventually either someone pointed me to him or I found my way to him. Somehow we connected, and he had what I wanted. And I was pretty sus about getting bad acid or research chemicals or things that people were saying was acid and is not. But he was a guy with like reagent test kits and the whole deal, and so he tested it, showed me, and sold me a couple tabs. And at school he sold it to me, I remember. So eventually, it sat in a box in my room for a couple days or weeks, and until I mustered the courage and the adequate knowledge of as much as you can teach yourself about what an acid trip is before you've had one, I had done. And eventually one night in my room alone, around 7, 8, 9 p.m., I took that little piece of blotter paper, Gamma Goblins, Void Realm, from the dark web. I don't know, he deals with all that. I put it on my tongue, and as I think most people do their first trip, I very anxiously waited for something to happen. And as per usual, after 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, nothing's really happening. I thought, well, fuck. He did me dirty. He ripped me off, and nothing's gonna happen. But slowly, and this is a memory that's etched into my brain. I was looking at my wall, and on my wall I have a lot of art and shelves with little statues and ceramic projects that I did, and all kinds of baloney on there. And I remember looking at the wall, just waiting for something to happen. Literally, I was just sitting on my bed waiting because, you know, this was it. I got acid finally. I'm gonna figure it out. I was sitting on my bed and I was looking at my wall, and everything became so vibrant, and slowly this all happened. And the colors, you know, the contrast just got turned so high up, and I was looking and I was saying, is this placebo? You know, because placebo can be pretty strong. Once upon a time, I thought I ate a weed edible and felt high, even though someone was just fucking with me. So placebo can really, you can really trick yourself with placebo, and I was convinced that's what was happening, you know. And then these little, again, very slowly, these little spinning vortexes started to show up on the wall and in everything I was looking at, and I was like, you know, they were so much more detailed than anything I had experienced in my life, any piece of art, any experience of viewing reality up until that point had not been that vivid, or at least none that I could remember. That high definition, that detailed, that densely packed with information. And I was looking at these little vortexes, and you know, when people do replications of what acid looks like, they do the little eyes, and I guess that's what I interpreted them as, little vortexes. And I was looking and they were purple and just so densely colorful, and I says to myself, I go, so this is what they're talking about. Like, it's real, you know, the psychedelic experience actually exists. It's not people making up stories, and it's not people being hyperbolic or analogous. I mean, there it is, there are visuals, I'm seeing them, and this was, you know, maybe I was just a prime candidate, because this was, as soon as I realized there's something in my life that I have yet to experience, something this different, something this profound, my ego, or whatever, my preconceived notions about my life immediately started to dissolve. I says, has everything been a lie up until this point? I mean, how come nobody has eagerly showed this to me? How come this is something I had to seek out? Why is it that this is even possible? And I think these are pretty common first trip thoughts. And as the trip progressed, the visuals heightened, and I was seeing things that I shouldn't have been seeing, and I was experiencing emotions that I should not have been experiencing. And by should not have, I mean according to that which is traditionally sanctioned, according to that which has been told to me, according to that which has been taught to me. None of this should exist. I mean, it's not in any book. I mean, at least not blatantly. After having had the experience, I can see that most stories are about something similar to this experience, if not this experience itself. But it's not in any book, you know. There's not the story of the boy who took acid. There's not the, I mean, we're not in a shamanistic culture, so this was so foreign to me, so alien to me, and yet it was my own consciousness that I was beginning to perceive, the abilities and the capabilities and the depth of my own self, which I was seeing for the first, I don't want to say the first time, because I think when I was a little kid, all this shit was just, I knew it. But, you know, after being conditioned, those memories didn't fit in the model of reality. Sorry, there's a plane. In the model of reality that I had built. So I kind of threw those memories away, I think. Very early memories of experiencing life in this way. But I was just blown away. I was perplexed, and I felt a little bit betrayed by my culture and by my people and by my family and my school. And this is kind of a moment where I gained some sort of true independent freedom, some sort of, I mean, this is when I realized nobody can teach me about myself like I can teach me about myself. And this was an important realization. I have written out here what I wrote the day after, and I've read this in one of the psychedelic diaries, like one of the really early ones. I'll just read it again real fast, just to give you an idea of, overnight, I went from someone punching holes in my wall for no reason other than I felt uncomfortable in my own skin, and I hated it. I just, you know, thoughts of leaving this world, thoughts of deeply depressed. I mean, intensely depressed. And I don't think I even knew how depressed I was until I kind of came out on the other side and was able to look at myself from not that depressed vantage point and say, wow, buddy, I mean, we gotta figure this out. We gotta do something about this. There's a frog and a dove. I don't know if you guys can hear all this. They're doing construction over there too, the city. They chopped down an orchard and they're putting a subdivision there. You know us, always building. But I went from someone mortally, dangerously depressed. I mean, I was in therapy, on anti-anxiety medication. I mean, I probably was just the perfect candidate, just a textbook case of someone who needed to see through a different lens, because my lens was very fogged up by my own conceptions about what I am and what my place is in the world. I thought it was all happening by accident, and I mean, that's what science teaches, right? Just, you know, chemicals. The beginning of life was just particles bouncing around in fucking water, and then they aligned in a way that made DNA, and so with that as my only jumping off point for what I am and for what myself is, or for what, yeah, myself is, paired with, so that's the model of reality I had built, but my experience of reality was so different. And I mean, I saw the world as a beautiful thing and an amazing place, and I just I don't know how to describe it, viciously, dangerously wanted to shove it in people's faces and show people what I saw, like, look, you know, and I had no real response because I didn't know how to articulate what I was trying to show or say. So I went from someone like that overnight to someone writing this, and let me just read it. We have no purpose here other than to exist, to simply rest, to find peace and beauty where we are. The moments will pass. It's up to me to find the beauty in each one. Evil and good live within all people, all objects, all particles, all universes. And to put a label on something of such broad existence is unfair. Focus on the beauty and learn from the ugly. Breathe in everything. Take it for what it is, but you decide. You decide whether or not you wish to focus on the bad or the good. And just like all things in our universe, we too have momentum. Good thoughts spiral into beautiful, bountiful worlds of inspiration and awe, while bad thoughts spiral into dark crevices. They crawl and creep into your mind if you allow them. By denying evil and bad, and all things ugly, and accepting the beauty I have lived, I believe the drug has one purpose: to shatter your world before your eyes, to have you sit and watch as your reality quite literally melts away, to take you back to a raw state fueled by a primal fear. It's only then, after having watched your world fly apart, is it possible to build it back, and to build it back stronger and in a way that makes sense. Only by letting go of my deluded reality have I been able to see clearly. Life is beautiful. A beauty so strong and unimaginably profound that the universe itself created life with the sole intention to experience it. To be gifted life is to observe this beautifully chaotic, constantly flowing and changing universe as a piece of itself. And in an existence so full and often confusing, it can become comfortable to ignore the world around me. My attempts to dull my experience of this life inevitably proved hopeless. I found myself in a position of constantly trying to fill a void of my own design. I got lost and confused and consciously picked away at my experience of the universe, and instead of being greeted with beautiful life every day, I was greeted by a dull, manufactured, depressing reality, and I am the only one to blame for this. The inevitable, unchanging truth is that I am here, and I am here to exist, only to exist, and to exist simply. I've been conditioned, however, to address all that simply is as good or as bad. This is another unchanging truth. What can change, and I have the power to do so, is my attitude. Attitude can determine perception. Perceptions alone determine someone's reality. I am changing my attitude about my reality, and in turn, am ultimately changing my reality. So it's pretty obvious that this was an extremely pivotal point in my existence here. I don't want to call it anything. But what it felt like was I was awakened to the truth of my being here. I was shaken awake. And I think that everything leading up to this point was necessary for me to be shooken awake. If my life had just been a dull, constant state of stasis, I wouldn't have had the capacity to understand that this experience was anything important or different than those dark places I could exist in. I know a lot of people like just hearing about the visuals and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sure if you're one of those people and you've never done acid, you've heard a million times that you can't explain it, and that's frustrating. I understand, but the things that I saw just couldn't have happened. They couldn't have happened. I couldn't have seen them. I shouldn't have seen them. But I did, and I think that's kind of what shakes you awake, is that there's more. There's more, buddy. Look. I mean, you've got this time here on this earth, in this body, doing this stuff. But after and before, there was and is more. So with my eyes open, I was seeing, like I described, the little vortexes, and obviously everything wiggling and shimmering and breathing and waving. And it's not like an effect put on a video, you know, like when you go out there and look up acid replications, what does an acid trip look like? And you click on a video, it shows you, you know, an overlay of colors and geometry and waves and whatever, but that's not at all what it's like. It's as if the ground literally moves. It doesn't look like it moves. It's moving. You're looking at it, and you know, you move around, you change your point of view, and still, like, that rock is wiggling the same way. You know, it's not like in front of your vision is a mask of visuals. It's like the world is changing. Reality is melting in front of you. And I remember for the first 3 or 4 hours, it was just sheer joy. I was laughing and crying uncontrollably, seeing all these things and moving my hands around, and because everything I had hoped about this reality turned out to be true. Against all odds, against everything I had been taught, against, you know, I mean, for example, I would go up to most of my teachers after class in high school and whatever, 8th grade, and I would pick at their brains. I mean, I want, you know, this is someone who society has decided is to teach hundreds of people, you know, every day. Let me ask him what he thinks about life. And, you know, I asked one guy, and he was, you know, just a textbook Christian, and I remember asking him specifically, so why do you believe in these things? And I wasn't being offensive. I mean, that wasn't my intention to be offensive. I was genuinely curious, because my experience with Christianity was not similar to his. And I says, why do you believe this? And his answer blew my mind. He said, because of what I've read about what could happen if I don't believe this, I'm afraid. And he told me, a ninth grader, straight up. He said that to me after class. It was just me and him in the classroom. And that blew my fucking mind. I mean, this adult, this person who everyone, you know, should look up to according to the way things are put in place. This person teaching me skills that I should carry throughout my life and that are for some reason valuable, believes something because he's afraid of not believing in it. And genuinely, that was one of the pivotal moments before the acid trip. That was like, that's how people live? I mean, this is just one of many examples of my experience of life. You know, what I believe, what I attempt to find out would not be determined by fear. It would be determined by experience. I would have, you know, my expectation coming into that question with him would have been that he would have had some experience, you know, that aligns with the Bible or aligns with the teachings of Christianity, but that was not the case. And this is just one of many examples of my experience of reality felt so misaligned from those people around mine's experience of reality. I don't know how I started talking about that, but yeah, I don't know. But to continue describing the experience. Oh, that's why I was so excited and joyful, because there is an experience for me to have that shows me that there is more to this reality. I've always thought there was. I've always had the gut feeling that there was, even if that more is nothing. And now we're getting woo-woo, but I had always felt it in my heart and soul that there's something more. And finally, here it is. Here is the something more. And I was, for 3 or 4 hours during the come up and the, you know, crying and laughing and moving things around on my desk, just looking at the wall and, you know, bouncing on my bed. And I remember the trash can kind of appeared to me as a black hole, and it was spinning. I mean, this vortex thing is kind of a theme. That's interesting. But, you know, it was spinning, and I would pick up little pieces of trash, and impossible things were happening. And, you know, time was going in different directions. I was going back in time and forward in time, and then forward in time, and then back, and then into a different timeline and back. And I was just, oh my God, I was right. You know, and I felt betrayed, and I felt disappointed that nobody had eagerly shown me this. This is the thing I was subconsciously trying to show everyone, because I knew that there was something possible, more than what I had been taught was possible. Sorry, there are big old machines out there, but I'll try to talk. I'll move close and try to talk loud. The trash can was spinning, and I was picking up little pieces of paper and, you know, going to the other side of my room and dropping them, and they would get sucked into the trash can. And I don't know what was actually happening. If you were an observer, it was probably just me, you know, fucking dropping little pieces of paper and them just falling, whatever. But my point is that the experience, whether or not anything impossible happened, or it was just a subjective experience of something impossible happening, what's the difference, right? I mean, the experience is identical. And then, of course, as I had read, you close your eyes and you turn off all the lights and you put no music, and you sit with yourself and the medicine and the tool. And so I did, and within to myself, I gazed and I wandered off, and just great vistas of fractals and repeating geometry and just infinity in those 10 hours was right there. I was holding it. And not only was I holding it, but I was walking around within it, and I was controlling it. And I mean, LSD is such a profound thing. And to be shaken awake by something that amazing, by something that profound, is truly a life-changing experience, especially if you're someone who was in a similar situation to me before. And again, I mean, language breaks down, and I know that's frustrating if you're trying to get the experience without having the experience by watching these kinds of videos. But the truth of it is, you won't know until you know. You won't see until you go. And that's that. I mean, I could sit here for hours just talking about the symmetry and the immense beauty and the visuals paired with emotions that are so deep, you know, it's like your soul sings. And a lot of my friends trip. I mean, you know, I'm one of those guys. I'm in that circle. I don't trip with people, but you know, I'm often asked to trip sit or just be with a group of people who are tripping, and I oblige. I enjoy it. But a lot of my friends and just a lot of people who trip in general don't have this life-changing experience for whatever reason. Oh, that's frustrating, those noises. And I think that has to do with, again, like I've been saying, the context, who you are coming into the experience. If you're expecting nothing or just expecting to have fun, then you will experience nothing or just having fun. I think I was expecting what I got, and that's pretty rare. Well, I wasn't expecting what I got. I was expecting something to shake up my world, and that's what I got. That something that shook up my world, you cannot expect. I cannot explain or articulate. But I think the takeaways, well, what I'm saying is, a lot of my friends will trip and it's kind of a weekend thing to have fun and pass the time. But for me, this was a shaking awake, and it seems like after that experience, I was awake. Whatever that means, I was awoken to some truth about myself, and my life after that, I was not depressed. Not even a little bit. I mean, I have bad days, I have bad months, I have bad, you know, dark times, but I wasn't convinced that I was hopeless. No longer am I convinced that I'm hopeless. No longer do I allow it to control me, to allow those feelings of depression and hopelessness control me. You know, I mean, I wasn't there for my life before this trip. There was no, I mean, look, in retrospect, it's like, that wasn't me. You know, it's like, it was the primordia of my body, just in pain. I had left, you know, it was so uncomfortable that I wasn't there, and a lot of people aren't there. And it's a shame, and I wish everyone could have this experience. But the takeaways were everything I read, and, you know, there's only just this moment, and it's 100% my choice whether I feel the pain in the moment, because there is an equal amount of pain and discomfort, and life, to in a certain extent, is treacherous agony. But there is this profound beauty and love and happiness and innate joy, and the doves cooing, you know, this dog sitting here at my foot eating a stick. I mean, it's gorgeous, and I'm a part of it. You know, and that's duality. And then even overarching duality, the fact that anything happens, even in those dark times, I feel grateful that I can experience them, because experience, I look at it like this life was not promised to me. Maybe it was. Me in my mortal form with these memories, I don't ever remember shaking hands with God and him saying, yeah, I'll give this to you, I promise. Death is promised, I know that much. So, I mean, the takeaways are just gratefulness, an understanding of the beauty, a cleansing of the lenses, a newfound clarity, a newfound love for myself and for everyone around me, an understanding that this lifetime is one of an infinite amount, and I'm lucky to even be here talking to this camera, to you guys. I mean, it's all just so profoundly beautiful, and I don't know. I trust that I would come to this realization without psychedelics somehow, be it over the course of my entire life, be it the moment before I die, be it after death. But the fact that I am in this life, experiencing it the way I am, is something that can't be put into words, is something that I can't say, is something that I wish everybody could have. And I think that's the reason I make these videos, is to, I mean, this video in particular, I'm choosing to be as vulnerable as possible. I mean, here I am, putting myself out there on the internet, and I know how the internet is. I mean, I expect, I've already had plenty of comments that are not, you know, are not particularly nice or fun to read, and I expect them. That's just the nature of reality. But I'm choosing to be vulnerable because I just want to give myself up to those people who might be in a similar experience as I was before, and just say that it's not hopeless, and it is possible for you to see that there's more to life, and I promise you that's true. My videos have been super rambly lately. I think I'm really just trying to express a lot, as always, but the filter's kind of falling away. And I think that's a good thing. Anyway, check all the links in the description. You know the drill. Share, whatever, dude. Do whatever the fuck. I love all you guys. I for real do. Keep on going.